Welcome to Black Man Lab. We are live July 27th, Monday. Glad to have everybody checking in with us. We should have a great panel tonight and a great discussion around the military and service. So before we get started, a little background on Black Man Lab. Black Man Lab was started some years ago by Brother Maoli Davis and three other brothers that were just looking for a space to be able to have their sons communicate with some other brothers and get information, right? So we're looking for information as far as what they want to do professionally, what they could do better, um, self-help type of activity. So that's where it started. It was a really small thing, and we are able to get together live. We get together at the Andrew and Walter Young YMCA. Right now, we're doing this virtual because, of course, the COVID situation. But normally, when we get together, we'll have 200 to 250 Black men getting together to share. And what we do is we share any topic matter that is set up for the week, as well as we share just knowledge with the young brothers there to help them to better themselves. So that's a little bit about the background of Black Man Lab. Um, Today, I have co-hosting with me my partner in crime, who's been subbing in just beautifully for Maoli when Maoli can't step in. Maoli will be on panel tonight because he has a military background, but he's going to be part of the panel, so he won't be hosting. And my brother Fred Parham will be joining me tonight as a co-host. So, brother Fred, welcome, man.
Hey man, I'm back. Listener audience, is good to be back on a motivated Monday, particularly with this topic, man. I'm a veteran too, so I'm excited to see this topic come up on the Rolodex. So looking forward to a great conversation, and hopefully the listeners and viewers will ask questions.
Absolutely. And please, if you are listening in, feel free to send in your questions, whether it's over Facebook or on YouTube Live, because we'll try to get to everybody's question. One of the things that we do every week is we work to make sure that we are in a safe and sacred space. What we do every week when we are together is we want to make that a safe and sacred space for everybody that's there to open and share whatever information they have, as well as be embraced by other Black men. So before we do anything, I want to make sure that we're doing that, and I want to just tell you that if you have anything going on in your life as a Black man, whether you had a rough day today, you had a rough week, a rough month, um, 2020 has been rough on all of us. So just know that we are embracing you right now with Black Man Love. If we were in the same space, we'd be actually putting our arms around you. Just know virtually we are doing that for you today as a panel, as a group. We want you to know that we are here to support. One of the other things that we do is Brother Fred works to get us centered in our mind. And then one of our other brothers, part of Black Man Lab, he's on our board, Jared, gets us centered with our ancestors. First, I want to bring Brother Fred back on to help us get centered mentally, and then I'll bring on Brother Jared.
Absolutely, brother Marty. So, to the listener audience and panelists, let everybody assume a position where they can just kind of inhale, and take a deep breath on three, two, one. Again, deep breath. Three, two, one. Exhale. Black men have to learn how to constantly be vigilant about being centered so that they can be poised, brother. So thanks, man. Let's go.
Appreciate you, Brother Fred, and you're absolutely right. We have to be extra cognizant about staying centered. Um, Brother Jared, if you could take us and get us connected with the ancestors, please.
Man, Brother Marty, thank you, Brother Fred, and all our panelists, thank you for being on. We like to always remember our ancestors. We like to lock in the memory of our ancestors, both in our hearts and in our minds. And so what I'm going to ask you brothers to do, and everybody out there, think of an ancestor, an international ancestor, that did some great things for us, for for our community, for us globally. So lock somebody in your mind right now, your heart and mind right now, for about 3 seconds. And then everybody raise your fist and everybody say Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. We're going to do the same thing for national ancestors. Somebody nationally, we as African Americans, there have been some greats before us that have done some great things, and we need to lock them again in the memory of our hearts and minds. So think of some national ancestors right now for about 3 seconds. And hold up your fist, brothers, and say Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. And lastly, think from your own bloodline. Those who came before you that made you, think about them. We, again, take this time to just put in your heart and mind the ancestors who created you. So lock them in for about 3 seconds. And raise our fist, and we say Ashe 3 times. Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe. Ashe. Ashe.
Again, we honor our ancestors, we honor their memory, and we've locked them into our hearts and minds. Thank you, brothers.
Thank you, Brother Jared. And just to piggyback on that, I think this is a special time for us to remember our ancestors and remember those that are becoming ancestors on a rapid basis right now. We just recently lost, again, Reverend C.T. Vivian, as well as Representative Don Lewis, and many other civil rights activists that are from that era are now moving on to being ancestors. We have to remember their work, and we have to remember that that work needs to be passed on into the work that we do. So I think it's essential that we stay connected to the ancestors, because that will be our fuel to the future. So again, thank you, Brother Jared. Want to just jump into here with the panel. What I'm going to ask of you guys is give an introduction of yourselves and kind of your quick background, just a short snippet of your background, because we're going to do a deeper dive into it as we move forward. But just give a quick background of what got you into the military services, and we'll jump around each person and do that. And before I start that, let me say, from all of our hearts, thank you for your service. I think as Black men, the service that you do in the military is lion's work, right? Because it's just different. We're in a world that's not designed for us, but we're working through it and making the best of it as military men, military Black men. So thank you so much for your service. With that, I want you guys to introduce yourselves. So I'll start with Brother Colonel Greg Clark. If you could give a quick intro of yourself.
Good evening, brothers. Colonel Greg Clark. I have been in the United States Army Reserve for 31 years. Graduate of Florida A&M University. Of course, that's where I met Joe and Eli and a lot of other brothers. I see Maui on there. For me, and I know we'll do a big deep dive here, but I've had an opportunity to see the world, in the military. Military gave me a lot. The leadership attributes I received has helped me professionally. My day-to-day job is I'm a financial advisor with Prudential, 24 years in the business, and certainly it's been a good carryover, and it's been great. The mentorship piece that I'm at a point in my career now where I can start to give back, or somebody pull me along is something that makes me happy. So I got a couple of more years to go, and then I'll hang it up. But that's just a down and dirty. I know we'll dive in a lot deeper, but that's me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Colonel Clark. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Brother Mombera.
Yes, greetings. My name is Brother Mombera, as I'm known in the community. My government name, quote unquote, is Robert Polk. So I was in the Marine Corps from 1987 to 1994, so I've been out for quite a while. My MOS was a 7563. I was a UH-1 helicopter pilot, which kind of fulfilled a lifelong dream of mine. My grandfather was a Tuskegee Airman, actually, and he inspired me to pursue the aviation field. So again, I've been out since '94. Saw a good bit of the world while I was in, and enjoyed it for the most part. I can get into that later, but yes, that was my service piece.
Appreciate you, Brother Mombera. Is Colonel Patrick on?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right. Good deal. Good evening, gentlemen. My name is James Patrick, but I go by Eli. I've been going by that since my college days on the Hill. I'm from Columbus, Georgia. Now I live in Phoenix City, Alabama, right across the bridge over here. I went through ROTC at Florida A&M University, and I am now in the brigade commander for the 55th Sustainment Brigade, and on the military side, because I am in the military and the reserves. And on the civilian side, I work for Pfizer as a specialty representative. But I've been interested in the military my whole life. I do not come from a military family, but I've been intrigued by the military since I was a very young boy. And it's just done some amazing things for me in my life, and has just helped me to become the man that I am.
Awesome. Appreciate you, brother. And last but not least, my brother from another mother, who is normally my partner as a facilitator of this, one of the co-founders of Black Man Lab. He does have a military background. Brother Mowley Davis.
What's up, brothers? Good to be with you all. My background, in 1987, I had a couple of decisions to make about going to school, and so it really kind of came down to Yale or the Naval Academy or West Point, and I chose the Naval Academy to play basketball there, and learned very quickly that I wasn't just going to be playing basketball, but I was going to be a United States Naval Academy midshipman, which was a lot different from being a college freshman. So started out as a plebe, met some of my best friends at the academy. We're still boys to this day. Dr. Ricky Jones, who is the chairman of the Pan-African Studies Department at University of Louisville, was in my plebe class. Mark Davis, who's a NBA referee, was in my plebe class, and then a lot of other really good brothers that have done really well for themselves. We're all in the same class of '91. So from there, got my commission as an ensign. I did about 9 months, 9 years, and 3 days, but who's counting? While I was in, I came into my consciousness in terms of my political, social, cultural consciousness while I was stationed in Philadelphia aboard the USS Forrestal, which was in dry dock at the time. And I bumped into a brother by the name of Butch Slaughter, I was a young officer. He was a petty officer, and we connected around Black history. And that has really led the path that I've been on. So I was stationed from there. I ultimately was stationed in Rota, Spain. Left Rota, Spain, came to Atlanta, to NAS Atlanta, and went to law school at night. And that's where I met my law partner. So I got out in right before 9/11, and had some medical issues that allowed me to get out a little earlier and just kind of move forward. So a lot that I do, the way that I move, is based on my experiences in the Navy, at the Naval Academy, and I think it has helped shape me in ways. And I say that it was a very, very oppressive situation in the Navy, at the Naval Academy, but it helped create a revolutionary out of me. So I appreciate it for that.
All right, brother. Appreciate you, man. And I was there with you through a lot of that. So To see you from there to here is fairly impressive. Brother Fred.
Yeah, Brother Marty.
Did you had something that you wanted to talk to the panel about?
Yeah, I did, man. You know, myself being a U.S. Army Reserve veteran, and having my brother and other men in my family, father, uncle, been in the Air Force, I just wanted to start because I think it's important for the listeners to understand, like, you know, that one, we got to face the piece about ain't no place for a black man in the military. So we just put that out there on the table. And I would ask the brothers, you know, on the personal side, what their motivation was to join the military. And did they face any of that question as black men when they were younger going in? And so, you know, we can start with whoever wanted to address that. What was your personal motivation?
Yeah, so for me, it was a family affair. Dad was Army, a couple of uncles, retired lieutenant colonels out of the Air Force, aunt, and I guess got Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine. Everything is in my family. And so for me, it's always been about service, and service to mankind, and then more of service to my country. So that's what kind of got me going, and I decided to take a long route and enlist initially before I became an officer, which gave me that perspective. That's why, you know, NCOs run the military, and so that gave me what I needed before I became an officer. But it's been a good journey, a tough one. There's been some roadblocks there through the military journey that I think, as I talk to, you know, some of my other fellow colonels that came out of Florida A&M, that we all faced, that could have derailed our careers, but the training we got, we just figured out a way to get around it to ensure we can become successful and to, you know, reach the rank of full colonel. Top 2% of the whole entire military is something. And so, you know, to a point now where we gotta start to mentor and start to pull some of these young people back. But yeah, some challenges was there, bro Frederick, but figured out a way to get around it, improvise, adapt, and overcome, and you know, here today. So
sounds good. Let's talk about some of the challenges, Miley, that, you know, just as a brother coming into this, what in the hood they call the white man's army when I was growing up. So talk about that, you know. So what should brothers be thinking about before they sign up and go to the MEP station?
Yeah, I mean, you really have to have a good sense of who you are. And I have seen the military, and we've all seen different organizations, you know, break people, you know, who weren't firmly rooted or grounded in who they are. I think that a lot of good in terms of discipline, you know, just learning what the process is, I think those things are helpful. And so I think you have to be mentally prepared. And one of the challenges that I had coming from the south side of Chicago was, you know, I was really fairly undisciplined to some degree. And then I was focused on, I was not, no military background, and I was going to play basketball and go to school. And the military part of it was really a secondary consideration. It was right at the time that David Robinson had just graduated from the academy. So the academy was somewhat of a basketball, a real solid basketball school. They had gone to the Elite Eight 2 years before I came, and then they had gone to maybe the Sweet 16 or at least the 32 the year right before David was the National Player of the Year. So for me, that's kind of the way I came into it, thinking more athletically and academically than I was from a military standpoint. So that was a rude awakening for me. But I think people have to, anything that you go in, the young brothers who are, considering the military, you have to have a plan. Like, what is it that you're going to get out of this experience? What is it that you want out of this experience? I've got one of my partners, his son is going into the Air Force, and he's going for 4 years, making that commitment, but he's prepared. He's preparing a way for him when he gets out to transition into doing something else. But if he decides he likes it and wants to stay in, he can do that. But I think you got to start with a plan, because what the military will do is they're going to get theirs from you. You got to make sure that you get yours from them. And that usually is at least getting training and education. Get as many college credits as you can, as much training as you can.
Thanks, Miley. And I heard Brother Colonel Clark, he talked about the enlisted route, and then he talked about being an officer. So for the listening audience, could somebody break that down for us in the context of going to school? What would be the best move for a young African-American man or female when they're considering going to the military? Should they go the enlisted route, or should they go the officer or ROTC route? Can somebody break that down for us?
I can do it unless Eli want to take it. Eli, you want to take it?
I'll chime in, because I did have some enlisted time also. My enlisted time was a little bit different. This is Colonel Patrick, Eli Patrick. My enlisted time was a little different than the traditional route. I went enlisted after my freshman year in college so I could get the GI Bill. And that's actually what I was going to speak about, even if you didn't ask that question, because the challenges as an enlisted soldier are definitely different from the challenges of an officer. On the enlisted side, like the brother just said, you just got to have some discipline. And that's one thing. I had some discipline, like the yelling didn't bother me. The physical activity didn't bother me. But what did bother me, because I try to be a critical thinker, is when people above me made dumb decisions, and I didn't know how to keep my mouth shut. I wanted to chime in. I wanted to be a leader. So what I'm saying is, as far as going the enlisted route, if you got to have some discipline, and just like the brother said, you got to have a plan. If you're going to be enlisted and stay in for 20 years, then do that. That's a good route. You'll get that paycheck after those 20 years, and you're good to go. But if you want to have some responsibility and just be totally honest, if you want to make more money, you can go to the officer route. But being an officer as a black man also brings its challenges. And the one thing that's been a challenge for me is just having something in common with my superiors, because my superiors don't look like me. They don't act like me. I mean, I went to Florida A&M. I pledged Alpha. And so I don't have much in common with my superiors. So I had to do several things. Number one, I had to wear the mask. I learned that when I pledged my fraternity. I'm an Alpha. I knew I had to humble myself and not say everything I wanted to say out loud. Number two, I just had to respect the authority. Number three, I've always said this, is I know that I got to be better than the person next to me, and that can be enlisted or officer route. But like I said before, you're going to face challenges as an enlisted soldier because you're not always going to be in charge. You definitely got to have some discipline, but it's not a bad route at all. But as an officer, it's going to come with different challenges as far as getting along with your boss, impressing your boss, and just being competitive, because it is competitive out there. But either way, joining the military is a good decision.
I appreciate that, Colonel Patrick, especially your honesty in speaking to the young people about those challenges. I think the military, we would agree, is a means to an end. And I know Brother Marty had a question or two he wanted to follow up with.
Yeah, I just you kind of lead into it. One of the things that we really try to be real cognizant about with the Black Man Lab is that, our goal here is to make sure that the young folks that we are, speaking to, that are looking at their future, have all the information available to them. So what I would like is for you guys to talk about perks, if you will. You're coming out of high school, and there's these kids that forced into college, which they might not be college ready, or they just don't know what they're going to do. Period. Where they say, I'm going to go get a job and then just figure it out. Talk about the perks of what the different avenues of the military can provide for a young brother coming out of college, coming out of high school, and what that can look like for them. Then we can get into the deeper dive of it as well. But Brother Mobero, can you start with that?
Well, I would be coming at it from strictly from an officer standpoint, because I was an officer. I don't have the enlisted perspective. But as far as perks, I mean, number one, as an officer, you get more respect. Of course, your pay is better. Even your living conditions are better, on the base normally. And if, I was in the Marine Corps, so we did a lot of time with the Navy. And so, if you've ever been on a ship, even your living accommodations on the ship are going to be better. But, along with those perks, there are responsibilities also. You may be responsible for the lives of, if you come in as a lieutenant and, maybe you're an infantry unit, you're in charge of, 43 men and women, and you're responsible for their lives, basically, especially if you go into a combat situation. So you have to kind of balance those two together. But I would say those would be the perks, the first perks that come to my mind in that respect. And then you have a lot of there's a lot of challenging situations, so you have a chance to kind of show your mettle and show that you can rise to the occasion when necessary.
Sure. Brother Patrick, what are your thoughts?
All right, I just had to get off of mute. Well, there's a lot of perks. I mean, you can think about the intrinsic stuff as far as, learning discipline, learning how to plan, learning how to have, learning about teamwork and things of that nature. I mean, there's a lot of intrinsic things that you get from the military that you may not get from, working at McDonald's or working at Walmart. Not that something is wrong with that, because that's an honest day's living. But the military is going to give you a little bit more of that. Now, extrinsically, just like he was saying, as an enlisted soldier, you may not make quite as much money as an officer does, but even as an enlisted soldier, you have a little more security there because you're getting a steady paycheck. The recession didn't affect the military as far as getting a paycheck is concerned. You're getting a paycheck. You will have housing. You will have food. You will have benefits. So even as an enlisted soldier, you'll have that. Just having that security is huge. Now, as an officer, yes, that's going to come with more responsibility, but with more responsibility comes more money. I wanted that responsibility. I wanted to be a leadership, because just helping others to succeed was something that I always have had a passion for. And if somebody's going to make the decision, why not me? I've always been like that. But the military is just a wonderful thing, and it has rewarded me tremendously.
Awesome. And I think that's the piece, is that, when we go into college, right, there's all of that, kind of investment that you're going to have to make. You got to be able to find housing. You got to pay for that. You got to pay for food. You got to do, you got to pay for school. But, with the military, it actually works in reverse. You're getting paid. It's hardcore work, obviously, but, all those other things are covered. So I think that there's a great opportunity there for, those people that are on the fence trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives at that early young age. Brother Clark, anything else that you could add to that? Do you think that are some advantages?
Yeah. I'm gonna take it in a different direction. So, on the listed side of the house, of course, the GI Bill, the loan repayment plan, all of those things are great. But there are some opportunities out there that truly will set you up. If you decide you want to go to language school, if you decide you want to go to law school, you decide you want to go to med school. I mean, there's a number of different schools that you can go to, and you can also take a path where you become a military liaison to a senator or a House of Representative member, or even the president, if you will, that would take you in a whole different direction and open up a lot of doors for you. You'll get an opportunity also to do some joint stuff with the inner services, which is great. Those relationships that you build, you can reach back and touch when your military career is over with. Got a lot of friends that left the military and they're drawing a great retirement, and they reach back and they're making six figures over here, even in the civilian world, or whether or not they decide to stay within the governmental realm. But those relationships, I think, is the biggest perk you're going to get out of it. But there's an opportunity to really go out there, and I'll tell these young people to take advantage of everything that's in front of you. You want to go do the hard job, and Colonel Patrick will relate to this. Is that as African American men, as African American officers, we can't take the easy job. We got to go take that crap and fix it and keep on moving forward, and take those hard assignments. But the leadership that you'll get out of it, learning how to talk, learning how to organize, learning how to brief, those things will take you a long way. And I'll tell these young people just to do it, stay in, get to 20, check the block, as we call, and then move on to something else. But it's a world of opportunity. And furthermore, to the young people, find a mentor. I'm not going to break the door down to come mentor you, but if you'll ask, I'll do it. And Colonel Patrick do the same thing. And I'm not seeing enough of that as I look back at some of the younger soldiers or military people coming up. They're not asking for the mentorship, and we want to give it, but they got to be willing to come ask.
Yeah, I think that's, part of the challenge with that is folks not having the level of understanding of what you guys do, right? Is in terms of all of the pluses that you can get out of the military. Is, we as Black men have that natural stigma where it's, wow, that's the white man's army, that's the white man's navy, that's the white man's whatever. But the reality of it is that it can be turned into a great opportunity, as you guys are great examples of. Not only that, one of the things that I can add to that for you, Colonel Clark, is when I'm hiring somebody, right? I've been in positions to hire people. And one of the things that I look at is if they have some military background, because I know that they're going to have a certain level of discipline, and a certain willingness to follow leadership, because that's what they've had to do for a period of time. And that always, and I think that's kind of across the board as it relates to employment. So whether somebody's in the military or in the private sector, it'll still hold true for you. Molly, what about you? Anything that you can think of that you can add to? I mean, you have a unique kind of a look at it because you wound up going to the Naval Academy and came from a space that you told me you were going to the Naval Academy. I was like, you're doing what? Because I knew that basketball was your thing. But talk about that a little bit in terms of what you see as perks, or what you would tell a young person, the reasons why to look at the military.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about options. Be quite frank with you, if my mother, who was at the time a single mother, if she had the financial resources, I would have either gone to Yale or Princeton, but she didn't have it. And so I think what some of our young people, find themselves in position where they have a need, where they have to make decisions. It's not a route that I wanted my sons to go. I wanted them to experience college, and I did not. And I have a very radical view, of the military in terms of what it represents right now, and it has around the world. And so it's not easy, it's not easy. I encourage young people to try to look at other options, largely college, before. But once somebody says, hey, I'm going to go to the military, I try to connect them with people who have, done a career. I think, I don't want us to miss the fact, man, that I think it's really powerful that Florida A&M has produced so many colonels. I mean, that's major, man. That just doesn't happen. That these brothers would have a HBCU experience and then take it and be able to do what they've done in the military. I've seen something, very similar with Navy and Morehouse graduates. They used to have a real strong Navy ROTC program at Morehouse. So there are programs that our young people can plug into. There are definitely opportunities. And, one of the things that I think has always concerned me, and it was something that, just was a challenge, was whether I would end up having to invade another country, and be a part of an invasion of another country, particularly a country of Africans or people of African descent. And that was always like I was holding my breath the whole time I was in, like, man, that's a tough decision, to have to make. And so those are real, challenges that I think, young people have to consider, before they go in. And that's why I think it's important that they do everything they can to raise their social consciousness and just kind of figure out, am I prepared for this? Am I ready to do this? And if so, then you do it and you find a way to give back to your community. And that was one of the things that we tried to do while we were in.
Oh yeah, Molly, I want to build on for the young man, because I know when I went in, brothers, in '89, and to the listening audience, I'm from Dallas, Texas, right? So my basic training location was in all the way in Newark, New Jersey at Fort Dix. So I'm a 17-year-old kid doing delayed entry. And for the listening audience, when you do delayed entry, you literally sign up in high school the summer of my junior year. On my way to being a senior, I did basic. And then when you finish high school, you go do what's called your advanced individual training in another place away from home most of the time. So having that set up, I left home and I talked to the brothers who still in right now. Are there any supports that brothers have when they in there, man, to address what Mauli is saying? You homesick, you seeing, taking orders from them, but folks who don't look like you. What's cool about the supports that a brother can create, and are those straight up names of organizations, or how does that work when you in the military for a Black man having supports in that?
Well, I think I will say, unlike after, I'm gonna kind of be careful here. Unlike after the Gulf War, wasn't a ton of support in place, but since the wars we're currently in right now, there's a lot of support that's out there for those soldiers, or just military personnel that's serving. Military One Source is one place that if somebody is having some mental issues, some mental problems they're dealing with, they can pick up the phone and 24/7 they can get a counselor on the phone. So some of those things are in place, and as an officer and even being in command, and I'm sure Colonel Patrick has seen this, is that we've had to be very, very careful, in ensuring that those soldiers who may need some of that help and support, that we can point them in the right direction. And we tend to be parents, and we also support factors for them as well. But it's a lot different than, even back when we enlisted back in the late 80s, from where it is now. There are some support mechanisms in place. And also in the Army, they have some things called warrior transition battalions, which are set up to actually help these soldiers integrate if they've deployed and come back and integrate back into society. So there is stuff there now, and the Army can't get enough social workers Army can't get enough psychologists, need them. Psychiatrists really need them in big numbers right now. So any kids that's watching this and decide they want to look at a career, it's certainly one there for them. But Brother Fred, yeah, it's a lot better than when we first went in, and there's some opportunities there for support.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
Colonel.
This is Colonel Patrick, and I'll chime in real quick. Colonel Clark is absolutely right. You know, everything for behavioral health right now in the Army Reserves and the active duty Army is very deliberate, because they, you know, with all these campaigns and wars that have happened in recent past, they you know, with the PTSD and things of that nature, everything that the military does now is deliberate, and behavioral health is one of those things that is very deliberate, very structured. So that is a good thing. I think sometimes when I'm going through the briefings that we go through, even if we don't have any issues, because we have what they call this resilience training, I wish my wife, my spouse, or my kids could go through that same training. But they try. The good thing about the military, they do a lot of things to try to prevent some of those mental health issues. So the military is a good route for that. And there's a lot of resources out there, just like Colonel Clark said.
Yeah, I appreciate you, brothers. Forward thinking about it. Come on, Mally, you want to add something?
Yeah, and I interpreted your question just a little differently in terms of just around cultural support. I think those are what the colonels raised are critical, but just in terms of the cultural support, right? You go into when I was at the Naval Academy, we had a group called the Black Studies Club. And so those affinity groups are not as easy to come by in the military because, you know, the objective is for everyone to kind of come together and be one unit. But what we realize and what we experience,
go ahead.
Well, you know, what we realize and experience are, you know, you experience racism in the military. You know, that's a part of any organization in America is going to have racism baked into it. And what these gentlemen have done is they've been able to navigate it and still rise, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't there, right? And so in the Navy, there was a organization called NNOA. It's the National Naval Officers Association. So just like in medicine, you had a National Medical Association, and in law, you had the National Bar Association. This was an organization for Black officers, and so, you know, naval officers, and so that existed. Then we founded an organization called the National African American Club, and we were trying to grow it in '93. And it was an organization that would have been comprised of both officers and enlisted. We were doing study groups on the ship. This was, you know, almost at the peak of the African-centered education movement. We were under great scrutiny by the Naval Intelligence, NIS, you know, because they're like, yo, what are y'all doing? You all are on here talking about, you know, Malcolm X and the Black Panther Party and this and that. So those are real situations. When we were in Spain, we established what was called the African American Heritage Committee, and that existed. And we would bring over speakers like Conrad Worrell and Anderson Thompson. They were coming over to the base, and they were teaching African history classes on the base. And the sailors, Marines, and soldiers who were on the base and hearing about it, they were loving it. You know, they were like, man, I ain't get none of this in high school. So there has been room for that. I don't know where that movement is now, in terms of, are there organizations that are culturally focused on enhancing the Black experience in the military? I can't say. Ours lasted for, you know, we lasted for about 10 years, but it was really it went with our respective, like Kedrick Bellamy. it went with him. He did it in Guam. I did it in Spain. We did it here at NAS Atlanta in terms of these study groups and having something that went outside of February. Because, you know, everybody was like, oh, you could do something in February. But after that, you got to, you got to keep it moving. So,
Hey,
it's complicated.
Hey, you know I'm not going to let you jump off here without telling us about your Black History program, bro. But I wanted to circle back to my Brother Mambara to see if you wanted to touch on that. When you were there any kind of cultural things that you did, like what Mal is describing, or something that you might have seen?
Well, yeah, I was a member of the NNOA, and that was very helpful in terms of connecting with other officers. I mean, it was, quite frankly, I felt isolated quite a bit. I was, when I went well, let's see. So when you graduate from college, I went through a program called the PLC program, in which you'd sign up and you'd go to officer candidate school during the summers while you were in college. And then when you graduated, you got commissioned. So, right from the start, I mean, there were very few blacks in the officer candidate school classes I was in. When I went to the basic school, which is kind of an officer grooming school that the Marines have once you get commissioned, that was 6 months. So I was in a company of maybe 200 officers, and there were maybe 4 or 5 blacks in the company. Then went to Pensacola, Florida for flight school, and started off the class is kind of split as you progress, but I think definitely in my graduating class from flight school, I was the only black officer out of about 50. When I went to my first squadron, which again is probably about 50 officers or so, pilots, so on and so forth, I was the only officer there. When I went to only black officer, excuse me. When I went to I spent a year with the infantry. I was an air officer there and in a infantry battalion, and was the only black officer. Excuse me, I was one of 2 black officers in the whole battalion. And then the other 2 squadrons I was in, I was the only black pilot in those squadrons as well. So it was the NNOA was really refreshing in terms of having kind of a support group to turn to in this kind of sea of whiteness, quite frankly. But yeah, that was our kind of outlet, was the NNOA, and we, they had parties, and we used to go to Tuskegee to the fly-ins on Memorial Day, things like that. So that was very helpful.
Man, that's dope, Brother Mambara and Molly, that you all have that connection. And before I pass it to you, Marty, I just want to tell the audience, man, I am honored. Y'all some bad brothers, man. Go ahead, Marty. Honored to be in your company, brothers.
Absolutely. To have navigated that space in a very positive way and doing great things now is highly impressive. One of the things that I want to talk about, somebody, I forgot who it was, touched on a little earlier. I think it was you, Brother Clark. The need for mentorship, right? What are your thoughts on making that happen, getting there, right? We are big, obviously, with the Black Men Lab on looking at mentorships and how we can positively affect our young black men, and we want to open up all avenues of whatever their future can be, right? And since we're talking about the military here today, what do you think? And I'll start with you, Colonel Clark. What do you think is a means to get there? I mean, I know it's hard, like you were saying. Nobody comes to you for the mentorship, and I think that's a challenge that we have in our community. Period, right? No matter what the subject matter is. So, what do you think could be a means to help us get there? And I'll open this up to everybody, and that's inclusive of you too, Joe, because I know that you've done huge things in mentoring in your life. So I'm just always looking for a means for us to get there. What do you think, Colonel Clark?
Okay, I'm gonna chop this up 2 ways. Okay, so I'm gonna put on the hat as a commander, and things that I would do when I was in command with those lower enlisted soldiers, E4s and below. I would often just bring them in my office or get them in a room myself without any sergeants or anybody else around, and just talk to them and try to figure out where they're going. These youngsters are very, very smart and just need some help and some guidance. And I would often do that. And you know, I'm proud to say that, you know, I've had some that's worked with me that's gone on to do great things. Now that's on the enlisted side. On the officer side of the house, as we start to think about these young men and women that are entering college, you know, we got to get them early on. But these professors of military science at these institutions have got to be acceptable to having that, quote unquote, the old heads come back in and start to mentor these kids and get them to where they need to be. So we got to continue to reach out, and I'll say this, and you know, as president of the FAMU National Alumni Association, I'm at every graduation, and I read and I induct those soldiers or people or kids, young graduates into the association. But I hate to even say this, that you know, they know I'm a colonel in the Army Reserve, and oftentimes a lot of them are branching just what I branch. And do not reach back out, you know. So, you know, we're gonna keep pounding the pavement. You know, me and Eli don't have a few more years in this thing, but we're gonna keep pounding the pavement and continue to try to mentor even, you know, after we're gone. But we just got to keep pounding it and give them a path. Let's start talking about, you know, how you get from point A to point B. And here's the path, here's the roadblock that you're going to face, and here's how to get around it. But these relationships, these connections, and not being afraid to ask, you know, for help is really where we need to be. So we're going to be okay. But, you know, that's where we
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, sir. Brother Mobero, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, mentorship is critical. I think, and you know, again, my experience is kind of dated. So I think one of the issues is not being stigmatized by reaching out to other Black folks in a, you know, mostly white organization. So I think we have to kind of deal with that, or I'm assuming that's still a situation. It certainly was when I was in. But yeah, mentorship is critical, I think, in any field. And so the more we can do to organize ourselves and help each other along, certainly the better off we'll be.
Yeah, and I think it's essential too, though, that the stories that you guys have, that we've just heard tonight, right? In terms of how you got to where you're at, a little bit of your background, you know, Brother Mobera, you know, having I think you said your father was a Tuskegee Airman.
My grandfather.
Grandfather, right? Yes. That in itself is an amazing story, right? And being able to relate that to these young folks, I think, is what's key. We have to be able to make it relatable, and that's what we got to work towards. Do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, you know, it's hard, right? Because I think the challenge in the military is that you have these fraternization rules and regulations, and you know, so they're it's a little bit of a barrier that's created, and I think sometimes we also, you know, we have to just be okay with. I mean, I went out of my way to speak to black, you know, enlisted and other officers. I mean, like, if they were walking down the other side of the street on the base and they didn't speak, or, you know, I had instances where, you know, black enlisted almost looked away so they wouldn't have to salute me, you know, just weird stuff like that, man. And I just try to go reach to them and I think we have to, as men, and I think this cuts across the military, wherever we are, we just have to go. And we're in a moment right now in our history where we have to go get our children. You know, we just have to go get them and recognize that whether they're our biological children or not, they are our children. And we have to just go get them. And there are times I've just rolled up on, I was at the drugstore the other day, and the kids, you know, his pants were down, and I'm not one of those, you know, I don't do the whole, you know, shaming cats. So I just, you know, pulled up behind him, just, hey, bro, pull up your pants, man. Just out of love, man. I said, man, I see you in here, man. You good? And it just so happened when he turns around, he was one of my son's classmates, my youngest son. He graduated my youngest son. He said, "Oh, Mr. Davis," But we just can't be afraid of our children, and we just have to keep reaching to them and keep showing them that we love them. And I think they're ready, and they really want right now of all the things that I've seen happening. I feel like they want to know that we hear them. They want to know that we hear them, and they're willing to do damn near whatever it takes to be heard. And so I think if we can reach to them quicker, I think we have to try to do that. And that's just my gut.
I think what you're saying there, Molly, was what I was kind of angling to in terms of we can't be afraid as potential mentors or just good voices for our young Black folks at this stage of the game, right? We have to be very intentional about it, right? That we're willing to step outside of our own comfort zone, because what happens is we get to, we're in that serious middle age space, and I ain't saying my age, but seriously middle age, and you start getting comfortable with where you're at, and it's like, okay, I've done my work, and you're just gonna cruise on out the back door. But the reality of it is now is when we really had to push our work down to these young folks, because they are active and they are ready. And Joe, I'm going to bring you in. I know you're not necessarily military, but I know what you've done in terms of your mentorship with people and how you reach and your willingness to do it. So I want you just to talk a little bit about that as well.
Thank you, Marty. Appreciate that. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
So I want to be real brief because you have such a dynamic and strong panel this evening, but I want to say everything that you guys have said is the key. Intentional, fearless, stay in the space with these young men. If you think about what we have going on here, I'm not in the military, but I pledged Colonel Patrick. Colonel Clark pledged me. My brother was in Rota, Spain with Attorney Davis. So see, all these circles connect, because we all are inspiring one another and know what we need to do. And we all are in those fearless circles where we stay from a young age to where we are now, mentoring our youth, not afraid to reach out to them. In education, we probably very similarly have some of the issues that y'all talked about in the military. As a Black educator, I'm constantly told, no, you can't mentor the Black men at your school. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. But I did it anyway, because I knew it had to be done. We have to be in those spaces. Colonel Clark has so much realm that he reaches out to with these FAMU students. Colonel Patrick has an entire brigade. It's just so battalion that he's working with and mentoring them. We have to continue to be intentional and fearless about reaching out in those spaces. And all of you brothers are doing it. I commend you. It's funny that Molly says exactly what he said. As I'm looking here, Marty, the topic for next week is Black men hear from the youth and what they need from us. And see, that's exactly what Attorney Davis was saying, because we're not afraid to be in that space where we're saying, hey, we know this and we want to be in that space, but what do y'all need? What are you saying? How can we best support you? And everybody on this panel has said that. They're reaching out, they're trying. So now we're going to listen to them next week and get that feedback, so then we all close that circle again. Appreciate that, Marty.
Absolutely. Great stuff, Joe. And I think behind all of that is that we can't be afraid of, doing that work, right? As we talk about being mentors and whatever it is, but we can't be afraid of doing it in an unashamed way. When I say that, I mean, I'm talking about being unashamed about our Blackness, unashamed about what we are as Black men, right? Because so often what society has done is put us in a position that we have to kind of mute it, right? We, sometimes in certain environments. I've worked in the corporate world for a long period of time. There's been times that I've just had to bite my tongue because I got a family to take care of. But now, again, at this stage of our lives, Ain't nothing like having that freedom of being able to say who you are and what you are, and being able to give that information to the young brothers today, especially with them having the willingness to just do something different and it change the world. I love that whole concept.
And Marty, if I could add, I think one of the things that the military teaches is that you don't leave anybody behind, right? You don't leave a man or a woman behind on the battlefield, and
Right.
we have to view our young people. We can't leave them behind. I mean, like, if we leave them, what do we have? You know what I mean?
Sure.
There's a book called 2000 Seasons where the heroine, the sister says she could have gotten away, but she came back for her friends and helped them out of their enslavement. And their friends said, you could have saved yourself. And her response, I think, is profound, and I think it guides us, is that, there is no self to save without all of us, right? So if we don't reach to our people and say, hey, I got you, then what's it all for? What's it all for? As much as these brothers have risked their lives, you're talking about a Marine Corps pilot, you're talking about, Army colonels. These brothers risk their lives. What's it for if not for the protection of at least the children within our community? And that's why I think it's so important that they would even come on today, because I'll tell you, there are military officers that I know that I've dealt with who, and they wouldn't be caught dead on something called the Black Man Lab. They just wouldn't do it. So it speaks to their social consciousness, and I think we have to, wherever we go, we got to still maintain our social consciousness and who we are.
Absolutely, Molly. And Brother Mumbar, you want to give us some parting thoughts, brother? Because I know you back from when I talked to Son and then Saroma, and certainly happy to see you today, bro.
It's good to see you, brother. So I want to, when you are looking at the military, you're talking to, if you're going enlisted, you're talking to recruiters, or you might be talking to ROTC people, whatever. And so when you're talking to the military representatives, you're going to get a very rosy picture of all the things you're going to get out of it. You're going to get education, you're going to get discipline, you're going to get this, you're going to get that. But they don't really talk about the possible negative. So I just want to, to be fully, I guess, transparent, to bring up a few of those. One, so when you join the military, you are under a totally separate system of justice. And Mahuli can probably go into more detail on it because he's a lawyer, but you're under what's called the UCMJ, and you may want to look that up and explore that. And so you have to think about that you are not really, it's almost like you're not a citizen. You have a totally different system of justice and legal parameters that you have to deal with. Two, depending especially upon your specialty, there's a danger element, okay? Especially if you go into the combat arms, which when I was in, a lot of Black folks were being pushed in those directions. Infantry, artillery, combat engineers. There's a lot of danger involved in dealing with weapons, with grenades, with explosives, so on and so forth. So you have to think about that also. And then, of course, on the aviation side, probably one of the most dangerous places on the planet is on the deck of an aircraft carrier. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that can go wrong. And so you got the danger element also you have to think about. And then the last one I'll bring up is just you have to think about, and this is something else that, folks, recruiters, so on and so forth, don't talk about is where your mind is about making the ultimate sacrifice for your country. You have to think about that because, they're really not going to say that explicitly. Hey, you may die in the line of duty, or you may have to kill somebody. Are you really okay with that? Going overseas and, being in a combat situation. So, and I know that, different specialties have different perspectives and different services also. Air Force, it's probably not as likely as maybe the Marine Corps or the Army to get into an actual combat situation, but you have to think about those things also. So I just wanted to bring those up as kind of a balance to the sometimes rosy picture we paint about the military life and so on and so forth.
Appreciate that, Brother Mobera. One thing that we always want to be here on the Black Man Lab is honest, right? In terms of everything that's out there, whether somebody wants to be a entrepreneur or somebody wants to be in the military, we want to be very honest about both the beautiful things that can come from it, as well as the challenges that can be there. Because again, we as Black folk, we know these things on the front end. We are more able to navigate through them much easier. One of the things I want to do now is just kind of wrap us up. We're up against the clock. What we do every week is we try to make sure we take a chance to. Go ahead. What were you gonna say, Molly?
Just really quickly, I thought the comments just a moment ago were really critical, because one of the things that we have to recognize is we got people coming back from overseas, and they're different. They've suffered from post-traumatic stress syndrome. They have gone through things that change them forever, and so I think it's important that is also weighed in there as a part of that decision. That Anthony Hill, here's a kid who comes back from the military, has a mental health crisis, and is killed by Dunwoody police officer while he was naked here in DeKalb County. So there are those things that definitely deserve consideration and balance. And I just wanted to underscore that, because I know that the men that have been here, man, we've been fortunate, we've been blessed. I know I have, and to make colonel, to be a Marine Corps aviator, those are blessings, and for us to be in our right minds after that is even is strong. So I just want us to make sure our young people understand that it's not without its dangers. And the last final thing I'll say is that when you go in, come back with your mind committed to helping our community. Like, what skills can I gather? When you saw men come back from Vietnam, some of them ended up joining the Black Panther Party or other organizations. They came back and they were ready to vote out of World War II, and that led to lynchings. So there's a history of Black veterans coming back into our community, saying that because I risked my life and because I saw what was out in this world, I want all of my rights, and I'm not going to settle for anything less than full equality and equity. And I think that mindset is something we should also encourage our young men and women to adopt, that you come back to the community and help us.
All right. Thank you, brother. With that, what I would like is if you brothers could really quick just touch on habits, rituals, and disciplines that you do on a daily basis, just to keep you moving and keep you centered on what you do on a daily basis. And it helps you to keep your mind in the right space every day. So I'll just run really quick through each of you guys. If you could tell us that, and then we're going to get into wrapping up everything here. Brother Mobera.
I got into yoga and breathing exercises. Breathing exercises really help with keeping you calm. Exercise is important. Exercise 5 to 6 times a week. I'm a little hardcore on that end, but exercise is a good way to relieve stress. And I also have a ritual every day I do where I go through and I thank, I just thank my body. I probably sounds kind of corny, but I thank my body and my brain for doing their jobs. I think, I give thanks for my family, for my friends. And so I found that if you focus on, the things that you have instead of the things that you don't have, that sometimes helps as well.
Awesome. That's great work. I'm with you on that. I thank my old wretched body every day for getting up. I thank myself for being able to. It's like, okay, thank you. You got your feet on the floor. Colonel Clark, how about you?
Up early in the morning, certainly meditate, try to make sure I eat right. Yeah, I work out 5 to 6 times a day. Time I just like to drive and turn the radio off and think. That's when I do my best thinking. And just try to picture what's coming down the road or what's around the corner waiting, so I can deal with it. So read a lot of documentaries, and just try to continue to educate myself and make myself better at my craft. So that's kind of me.
Love it, lifelong learner.
That's great. Yeah, and I'm with you on that. Daily education. That's been my, stay away from the social media stuff and get into something that's gonna educate my mind. I'm with you on that. Ali.
Yeah, I very much the same as these brothers. Get up. I try not to jump on social media. The first thing I try to do is pay some homage to the ancestors, thank the creator, and then go do, I listen to a lot of videos every morning, so as I walk, I probably listen to about an hour and 20 minutes of videos every day, whether it's Dr. John Henry Clark, or it's law of attraction, or it's something around the Ifa religion, just different it's bits of information. And then, workout, and that meditation is something that I've learned, and Marty, trying to work this very stiff body of mine into yoga poses has been a real hobby. So it's good. I'm thankful that I have a morning routine, and I think all of our young people all of us should have a routine that we do, because if you don't plan your day, it will definitely get away from you, and it won't be yours. It'll be somebody else's.
Absolutely. And I'm with you, man. I missed, for those that don't know, me and Molly used to do our hot yoga every morning together. But since the Corona, neither of us feel safe going to our little location that we do it at. So he's got some in-home sauna at his place. I don't have that, so I'm stiffening up as we speak. But yeah, all those things are good, man. Listen, a couple of announcements we're gonna make, and then Brother Molly, I want you to go ahead and take us out with the link in the chain. But first, I'm gonna go ahead and make our announcements for next week. Next week, again, as Brother Joe Barker spoke about, we're going to be doing, the topic will be Black men hear from the youth and what they need from us. So what we're really looking at is we want to get the information from the young folks so that we have an idea of what we can do to help them, man. That's all we're about here. Black Man Lab is trying to build our young folks up for the future and for their kids thereafter. So that's going to be our topic next week. Another thing I want to mention, I want to make sure, again, we are part of, Black Man Lab is part of Black Radio United's initiative to get out and vote and get registered to vote. We want to make sure anybody that's listening, or if you know anybody that's not registered to vote, make sure you get them registered to vote. There's an easy way to do it electronically. You can go to myvotecountsga.com. That's for here in Georgia. Whatever state has that same thing, but it'll be myvotecounts, whatever the state is, .com. And you can go there and just easily get registered to vote. All you need is your ID. So we want to make sure that, especially our audience, the young Black men who are the least census that are registered to vote, we want to make sure that they're getting registered to vote. Also, fill out your census. If you have your census, make sure you fill it out. Other than that, brothers, did I miss any other announcements that we had? Okay, I think we're good. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Mauli so that he can close us out in our tradition, and get us out the back door. Mauli?
Yep, and I just want to thank all of our wonderful, powerful panelists, man. Colonel, we got my law partner's son is coming on the fam, man. Robert Bozeman. So
Okay. All right.
we'll be back, man. We're ready for homecoming in 2021 now.
There you go.
So
there you go.
Yeah, man. Thank you for all that you do, and with Florida A&M, one of the schools that we are very supportive of. So with that, brothers, if we link up. We learned that from Mama Njiri Algani, she used to tell us to link up, and we would say, I am a link in this chain, and it won't break here. So if you would repeat after me, I am a link.
I'm a link.
I'm a link
in this chain. And it won't break here.
And it won't break
And it won't break here.
I am a link in this chain.
I'm a link
in this chain.
And it won't break here.
And it won't break here.
We are links in this chain.
We are links in this chain.
And it won't break here.
And it won't break here. Ashe.
Thank you, brothers.
Brothers,
thank you,
again, thank you so much. Appreciate you all being on. And again, when we are back live and in person, I will love to have you guys in our space live with the young brothers there and be able to talk about this subject matter again. All right. So thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Hey, all right, bro, Mabar, we got to catch up, man. You probably were in flight school with one of my boys.